The moment my sister called me just a vessel, something inside me shattered, but I didn't let her see it. Instead, I watched her perfectly manicured fingers slide the check across the hospital cafeteria table, her wedding ring catching the fluorescent light like a warning signal I should have heeded months ago. My name is Hadley, and 48 hours ago I gave birth to my nephew. My body is still aching, my hormones are raging, and the baby I carried for 9 months is somewhere upstairs in the maternity ward with the woman who's about to break my heart. This is the agreed upon compensation, plus a generous bonus, Rachel said, her voice clipped and professional, so different from the tearful pleading of a year ago. Once you sign the final paperwork, we can all move forward. I stared at the check, remembering how this started. Rachel at my door, mascara streaking her cheeks, clutching yet another negative pregnancy test. You're my only hope, she'd sobbed. Please, Hadley. You're my sister. Help me have a baby. The paperwork's already signed, I said quietly, pushing the check back. I didn't do this for money. Rachel's perfectly plucked eyebrows drew together. Don't make this complicated. You knew the arrangement from the start. Arrangement? My voice cracked. I'm family. I carried your son for 9 months. I felt every kick, every hiccup. That's exactly why we need clear boundaries, she cut in. Julio and I have discussed this extensively. It's healthier for everyone if you maintain your distance. The cafeteria buzzed around us, oblivious to my world imploding. A nurse dropped her fork. The clatter made me jump. Distance? I echoed. Rachel, you can't be serious. We talked about me being part of his life. I said what I needed to say to get what I wanted. Rachel stood, smoothing her designer dress. You were just the vessel, Hadley. We don't want any confusion for our son. My hands began to shake. Our son? You mean the baby I carried? The one I sang to every night? The one who knows my voice? Don't be dramatic. Rachel's voice turned to ice. This is exactly why we need separation. You're obviously too emotionally attached. Of course I'm attached. Several heads turned our way. I lowered my voice. I'm his aunt. I'm your sister. And now you're neither. She pulled out her phone, probably texting Julio. The check will clear immediately. I suggest you use it to start fresh. Maybe move somewhere new. I thought about the contract in my lawyer's office, about the clause Rachel had skimmed over, too eager to get to the signatures, about Seth's knowing look when he'd slipped in that single, crucial paragraph. You can't erase me, I said softly. Rachel's laugh was cruel. Watch me. She gathered her purse, that massive designer thing that probably cost more than my monthly rent. The nurses have been instructed. You're not on the approved visitor list. Don't make a scene. She turned to leave, but I caught her wrist. Remember when we were kids, when Dad died? You promised we'd always have each other's backs. Something flickered in her eyes. Guilt, maybe? But it vanished instantly. She yanked her arm away. Grow up, Hadley. This isn't some childhood pact. This is my life, my family, my son. She straightened her spine, looking down at me like I was something stuck to her shoe. You were just the vessel, nothing more. I watched her walk away, her heels clicking on the linoleum floor. The check sat between us like a ransom note. My hands stopped shaking as a strange calm settled over me. You have no clue what's coming, I whispered to her retreating back. My phone buzzed. A text from Ava. How did it go? I picked up the check, took a photo, and sent it to her. Then I typed, she did exactly what we expected. Call Seth. It's time. Upstairs, a baby was crying. My nephew. I knew it in my bones. The same cry I'd felt from the inside for months. Rachel thought she could buy my silence, erase 9 months of connection with a single check. But my sister forgot something crucial about me. I learned from the best. She taught me how to play the long game, how to smile while plotting, how to wait for the perfect moment to strike. I pulled out the business card Seth had given me months ago. My fingers traced the embossed letters of his law firm's name as I remembered his words. This clause is a nuclear option, Hadley. Once we trigger it, there's no going back. Good, I thought, reaching for my phone, because Rachel had no idea what she'd just started, and I was done playing the good sister. You're absolutely insane, Seth had said 6 months ago, leaning back in his office chair. You want me to hide a custody clause in a surrogacy contract? I remember the way his office smelled of coffee and leather, how the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across his desk. Not custody, I'd corrected. Parental presence. There's a difference. Hadley. He'd pinched the bridge of his nose. This is your sister we're talking about. Exactly. I'd pulled out my phone, showing him the text from Rachel, the manipulation, the guilt trips, the constant reminders of our dead father and what he would have wanted. Look at these messages. Tell me this is normal sister behavior. Seth scrolled through them, his frown deepening. Jesus, she's really working you, isn't she? She's always been like this, getting what she wants, then discarding people. I'd leaned forward. I want to help her have a baby. I do, but I need insurance. Now, sitting in Seth's office again, I watched him dial Rachel's number on speakerphone. My heart hammered as it rang. Rachel Steele speaking. Her voice chirped, all professional sweetness. Mrs. Steele, this is Seth Phillips. I'm calling regarding the surrogacy agreement between you and your sister. A pause. That matter is concluded. If Hadley has concerns... Section 7, paragraph C. Seth interrupted. The parental presence clause. I'm formally notifying you that my client is invoking her rights under this provision. The silence that followed was deafening. What clause? Rachel's voice had lost its sugarcoating. There was no such... Page 12, Seth said calmly. The paragraph you initialed regarding maintaining biological maternal connection in the child's best interest. It grants Hadley legally protected visitation rights and a permanent role in the child's life. That's impossible. I never Papers rustled on her end. Then, you tricked me. You signed it, I spoke up. Just like you signed the check calling me just a vessel. Hadley? Rachel's voice turned venomous. You sneaky little... A process server will deliver the formal documentation this afternoon, Seth cut in. I suggest you review it with your lawyer. The line went dead. Well, Seth said, closing his laptop, that went about as expected. My phone immediately lit up with texts from Rachel. How dare you? You manipulative bitch. You'll never see him. I'll fight this. I showed them to Seth. He shrugged. Let her rage. The clause is ironclad. I made sure of it. She'll try to paint me as unstable, I said. She's probably already calling Mom. Right on cue, my phone rang. Mom's name flashed on the screen. Don't answer, Seth advised. Not until we filed everything. I stared at the phone until it stopped ringing. She'll side with Rachel, she always does. That's why we documented everything. Seth pulled out a thick folder. The emotional manipulation. The illegal attempts to add non-disclosure agreements after the birth. The check meant to buy you off. He tapped the folder. Your sister's perfect image is about to take a very public hit. You warned me this would be war, I said quietly. And you said you'd sharpen your blade. He met my eyes. Are you ready for this? My phone buzzed again. A text from Julio. Please, let's talk about this reasonably. Name your price. I showed it to Seth. He whistled. They're scared. They should be. I stood up, gathering my things. How long until the server reaches their house? Seth checked his watch. Any minute now. Good. I headed for the door, then paused. Seth, thank you. For everything. Hey, I owed you for getting me through law school. He smiled. Besides, someone needs to teach your sister that karma's a bitch. I was halfway home when Ava called. Rachel just posted on Instagram, she said without preamble, some long rant about toxic family members and protecting her child from unstable influences. Right on schedule, I said, unsurprised. Wait for it. 3 minutes later, Ava called back. Holy shit! She just got served. She's live streaming her meltdown. I pulled into my driveway just as my phone exploded with notifications. Rachel's perfect facade was cracking in real time, broadcast to her thousands of followers. You think you've won? Rachel's final text read, "This is just the beginning." I smiled, thinking of the baby boy upstairs in her house, the one who knew my heartbeat, who kicked to the sound of my voice, who was about to learn that some bonds can't be broken by money or manipulation. No, sister, I whispered, typing my response. This is just the end of your control and the beginning of my justice. Then I blocked her number and called Seth. Phase 1 complete. Let's move to phase 2. Your sister's having a complete meltdown on social media, Ava said, scrolling through her phone. We were sitting in my kitchen, watching Rachel's carefully curated world implode in real time. Look at this. She's already lost 3 sponsorship deals for her lifestyle blog. I sipped my coffee, remembering how Rachel used to mock my ordinary life while she built her influencer empire. What's she saying? That you're unstable, obsessed, trying to steal her baby. Ava paused. Oh, and apparently you've been jealous of her perfect life since childhood. A knock at the door made us both jump. I opened it to find Julio standing there, looking exhausted in his rumpled designer suit. Can we talk? He asked. Privately? Ava squeezed my shoulder as she left. Call me if you need anything. I let Julio in, watching him pace my small living room. Rachel's not sleeping, he said. She's paranoid, checking the contract every hour, calling lawyers. Sounds stressful, I said flatly. Almost as stressful as being called just a vessel after carrying your child for 9 months. He pulled out his checkbook. Name your price. Double what we offered. Triple. You can't buy motherhood out of me, Julio. You're not his mother. He slammed his hand on my coffee table. Rachel is his mother. You were just a vessel, I finished. Funny how you both keep using that word. I pulled out my phone, playing the video I'd secretly recorded in the hospital cafeteria. Rachel's cold voice filled the room. You were just the vessel, Hadley. Julio's face paled. Where did you get that? The same place I got everything else documented. Every manipulative text, every threat, every attempt to buy me off. I leaned forward. How do you think Rachel's followers would react to seeing the side of their perfect lifestyle guru? You wouldn't. Try me. My phone buzzed. An email from Seth. I opened it to find a link to a local news website. The headline read, Sister Surrogacy Scandal. Local influencer accused of emotional manipulation. It's already starting, I showed Julio the article, and this is just the beginning. He sank onto my couch, head in his hands. Our investors are getting nervous. The company's stock dropped this morning. That sounds like a you problem. Please, he looked up. Rachel's not well. She's been through so much with the infertility. And I haven't? I cut him off. I gave her everything she wanted. My body, my time, my health. I just wanted to be part of his life. You can be. He stood up. We'll set up visits, scheduled times. No. I want what's in the contract. Legal recognition. Protected rights. I walked to the door. Now get out of my house. After he left, I called Ava back. How's it looking? Rachel's losing it, she said. She just posted this long rant about how you tricked her into signing the contract. Her followers are turning on her. Apparently they don't like someone who tries to erase their own sister. My phone beeped with another call. My mother. I should take this, I told Ava. Wish me luck. Hadley Jordan, Mom's voice was sharp. What have you done? Hi, Mom. Nice to hear from you too. Rachel is devastated. Her career is in jeopardy. How could you do this to your own sister? I laughed bitterly. Funny. You weren't this concerned when she was manipulating me into being her surrogate. She's been through so much. And I haven't, I was shouting now. When did I become the disposable daughter, Mom? When did Rachel's happiness become more important than my humanity? Silence. You know what? I continued. Don't answer that. Just know that I'm done being Rachel's doormat. And if you choose to support her over me again, we're done too. I hung up before she could respond. My phone immediately lit up with a text from Seth. Rachel's lawyer reached out. They want to negotiate. No, I typed back. Let them sweat. I opened Instagram where Rachel's latest post was gathering comments. Can't believe you tried to erase your own sister. Who calls their surrogate just a vessel? That's cold. Unfollowing. This is disgusting behavior. Another text from Seth. Phase 2 is ready. Just say the word. I thought about baby Oliver, probably sleeping in his nursery right now, about how Rachel planned to keep him from ever knowing the woman who carried him, sang to him, loved him before he even took his first breath. Do it, I replied to Seth. Release everything. Then I turned off my phone and poured myself a glass of wine. Tomorrow, Rachel would learn that karma doesn't just knock. Sometimes it kicks down the door. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters when I arrived. Ms. Jordan, they called out, how do you respond to your sister's claims of emotional extortion? Seth guided me through the crowd, his hand steady on my back. No comments until after the hearing. He repeated like a mantra. Inside, Rachel and Julio sat with their lawyer, both dressed in matching navy suits that probably cost more than my car. Rachel's Instagram perfect appearance had cracked. Dark circles showed through her concealer, and her hands trembled as she shuffled papers. All rise, the bailiff called as Judge Gibson entered. Your Honor, Rachel's lawyer started, we move to dismiss this claim. The surrogacy contract was signed and notarized by all parties, Judge Gibson interrupted, peering over his glasses. I've reviewed the documentation. The parental presence clause is valid. Rachel shot up from her seat. She tricked me into signing it. Mrs. Steele, the judge warned, outbursts won't help your case. I watched Rachel sink back down, her face flushed. This wasn't her carefully controlled social media world. Here, she couldn't delete comments or block users who disagreed with her. Your Honor, Seth stood, we have evidence of systematic emotional manipulation and attempts to illegally modify the agreement after birth. He projected screenshots onto the courtroom screen. Rachel's text scrolled by. Dad would have wanted this. You're my only hope. Don't you love me at all? If you really cared about family? Then came the hospital video. Rachel's cold voice filled the courtroom. You were just the vessel, Hadley. Gasps from the gallery. A reporter scribbled furiously in her notebook. Furthermore, Seth continued, Mrs. Steele attempted to add illegal non-disclosure agreements after the birth and offered substantial payments for my client to, quote, disappear. The judge turned to Rachel's lawyer. Response? Your Honor, my client was under extreme emotional distress. So was I. I couldn't help myself. I carried her child. I felt him grow. I loved him before he even had a name, and she tried to erase me like I was nothing. Ms. Jordan, the judge's voice softened slightly. Control yourself. The courtroom doors opened, and my mother slipped in. She sat in the back row, her face unreadable. Your Honor, Rachel's lawyer tried again. The child's welfare is exactly why the parental presence clause exists, Seth interrupted. My client has a biological connection and a legal right to maintain it. Judge Gibson studied the papers before him. I'm denying the motion to dismiss. This case will proceed to full hearing. Rachel burst into tears, perfectly timed, perfectly dramatic. I'd seen this performance before, at my 13th birthday party, when she'd convinced our parents I'd ruined her new dress on purpose. In the meantime, the judge continued, I'm ordering temporary supervised visitation, 2 hours, twice weekly, at the Family Services Center. No, Rachel screamed. You can't let her near my baby. Mrs. Steele? Judge Gibson's gavel cracked like thunder. One more outburst and you'll be held in contempt. This court recognizes your sister's legal rights under the contract you signed. Deal with it. Outside, the reporters swarmed again. Rachel pushed past them, mascara streaming down her face, a performance that would probably be on her Instagram story within the hour. My mother caught up to me at my car. Hadley, please, stop this madness. Madness? I turned to face her. Like when Rachel ruined my college graduation by announcing her engagement during my party, or when she told my fiancé about my miscarriage before I could. That kind of madness. She's your sister. And I'm your daughter. My voice cracked. But you never saw what she did to me. You never wanted to see. Mom reached for my hand. I pulled away. I have visitation rights now, I said quietly. I get to meet my nephew, hold him, be part of his life, and there's nothing you or Rachel can do about it. The media is calling it the sister surrogate scandal, she whispered. Our family's being torn apart. No, Mom. Rachel tore us apart years ago. I'm just finally fighting back. I got in my car, watching in the rearview mirror as my mother stood alone on the courthouse steps. My phone buzzed with a text from Ava. You won. Not yet, I replied, but soon. Another text came through, this one from Seth. Rachel's lawyer wants to discuss settlement. I thought about the baby I'd carried, who would be waiting at the Family Services Center in 2 days. About how his first smile, first word, first step wouldn't be hidden from me anymore. No settlement, I typed back. I want it all. Because Rachel had taught me one valuable lesson. When you have someone cornered, you don't let them up until they've learned their lesson. And my sister's education was just beginning. The Family Services Center smelled like disinfectant and stale coffee. I sat in the sterile visitation room, my heart pounding as I waited for them to bring Oliver. Rachel stood in the corner, arms crossed, while a social worker named Marie watched us both. Remember, 2 hours, Marie said. No fighting in front of the baby. The door opened, and Julio walked in carrying Oliver. My breath caught. He'd grown so much in the weeks since his birth. His eyes were wide open, taking in the world with that intense newborn stare. Can I? My voice trembled. Can I hold him? Julio glanced at Rachel, who turned away sharply. He gently placed Oliver in my arms. The weight of him felt so familiar. My body remembered this, remembered him. His tiny fingers wrapped around my thumb, and tears sprang to my eyes. Hi, sweet boy, I whispered. I've missed you so much. Rachel made a disgusted sound. Don't get too attached. This is temporary. Mrs. Steele, Marie warned. Remember the judge's orders about hostile behavior. I ignored them both, focusing on Oliver. Without thinking, I started humming our grandmother's lullaby, the one she used to sing to Rachel and me when we were small. Oliver's eyes fixed on my face. He knew this song. He knew my voice. Stop that, Rachel snapped. You have no right. I have every right, I said quietly, still rocking Oliver. I carried him. I sang to him every night for months. He knows me. He knows nothing. He's a baby. Mrs. Steele, Marie intervened, please lower your voice. I continued humming, watching Oliver's eyes grow heavy. He felt perfect in my arms, just like he had during those 9 months when it was just us. You're trying to steal him, Rachel's voice cracked. You've always been jealous of everything I have. No, Rachel, I just want to be his aunt, his birth mother, the person who loved him enough to carry him for you. I looked up at her. Before you decided I was disposable, Julio stepped forward. Maybe we should take a break. No, Rachel grabbed his arm. We're not leaving her alone with him. I'm right here, Marie reminded her, and Miss Jordan has every legal right to this visitation. Oliver made a small sound in his sleep, his tiny hand still gripping my thumb. I kissed his forehead, breathing in that perfect baby smell. Remember when we were little? I asked Rachel. When we played with our dolls and promised we'd raise our kids together? Stop it, she whispered. What happened to us, Rachel? When did you start seeing me as competition instead of family? She turned away, but not before I saw tears in her eyes. Real ones this time, not the performance tears she used for social media. Time's almost up, Marie announced gently. I stood carefully, not wanting to wake Oliver. Julio came to take him, but paused. He looks peaceful with you, he said softly. Rachel's head snapped around. Julio! It's true, Rachel. Look at him. She did look finally. I saw something flicker across her face. Recognition, maybe, or remembrance of who we used to be to each other. Next visit is Thursday, Marie said, as Julio took Oliver. Same time. Rachel grabbed her designer bag. This isn't over. No, I agreed. It's just beginning. After they left, I sat alone in the visitation room, my arms feeling empty. Ava was waiting outside. How was it? She asked, hugging me. Perfect and horrible. I wiped my eyes. I got to hold him, Ava. He remembered me. Of course he did. She squeezed my hand. You're his first mother. My phone buzzed. A text from Seth. Rachel's lawyer called again. They want to discuss joint visitation rights. No supervision required. What do you think? I asked Ava, showing her the message. I think you need to be careful, she said. Rachel's desperate. This could be a trap. Another text came through, this one from Julio. Can we talk? Alone? It's about Rachel. Don't do it, Ava warned. Not without Seth present. But I was already typing back. When? Because I'd seen something today. A crack in Rachel's armor, a glimpse of the sister I used to know. And maybe, just maybe, there was a way to win this war without destroying everything in the process. Tomorrow, Julio replied, there's something you need to know about Rachel. Something that changes everything. I showed Ava the message. She shook her head. This feels wrong. But I was already thinking about Oliver's peaceful face as I sang our grandmother's lullaby, about Rachel's real tears, about the possibility of healing instead of just revenge. I have to try, I told Ava, for Oliver's sake, and for the sake of two little girls who once promised to raise their children together before life and jealousy and pain tore them apart. I met Julio at a quiet coffee shop across town. He looked exhausted, his usual polished appearance rumpled, his eyes bloodshot. Rachel doesn't know I'm here, he said, sliding into the booth. She's not well, Hadley. What do you mean? He pulled out his phone, showing me Rachel's recent search history. How to prevent visitation rights, ways to move child overseas, countries without U.S. extradition. My blood ran cold. She's planning to run with Oliver? It gets worse. He scrolled through text messages. She's been contacting people about fake passports. She's liquidating assets. And yesterday, he paused, running a hand through his hair. Yesterday I found her flushing her medication. Medication? What medication? For her bipolar disorder. She's been managing it for years with therapy and meds. It's why... He looked down at his coffee. It's part of why we couldn't conceive naturally. Some of her medications interfered with fertility treatments. The pieces started falling into place. The extreme mood swings, the grandiose social media presence, the intense manipulation followed by cold detachment. Why didn't anyone tell me? I whispered. She made us promise. Said she didn't want you to back out of the surrogacy. He looked ashamed. I should have told you. My phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. Where's my husband? Then another. You're trying to turn him against me too, aren't you? And another. You won't take my baby. You won't take my husband. I'll burn everything down first. I showed Julio the messages. His face paled. She's spiraling, he said. The publicity, the court case, the visitation, it's pushing her over the edge. She's convinced everyone's conspiring against her. We need to call Seth, I started, but Julio grabbed my wrist. No lawyers. Please. She needs help, not more legal pressure. My phone kept buzzing. Rachel was calling now. Don't answer, Julio warned. She can track your location if you do. But I was already hitting accept. Rachel? I knew it, she screamed. You're with him right now, aren't you? Planning to take my family away? Rachel, calm down. We're just talking. Liar. You've always wanted what I have. Always jealous. Always plotting. Her voice turned eerily calm. But you can't have them. I won't let you. Rachel. I'm at your apartment right now, she said softly. Looking at all your little pictures, all your pathetic attempts to document the pregnancy, to steal my memories. My heart stopped. Get out of my home. Make me. Something crashed in the background. Oops! Was that frame important? The one of you and Oliver's ultrasound? Julio was already calling 911. I put the phone on speaker. You know what, sister? Rachel's voice dripped venom. You want to take everything from me? Let's see how you like losing things. More crashing sounds. Glass breaking. Wood splintering. Rachel, stop! You're having an episode. An episode? She laughed maniacally. Is that what Julio told you? Poor crazy Rachel off her meds again? Another crash. Well, guess what? I've never seen more clearly. You're trying to replace me. As a mother, as a wife, as everything. That's not true. You carried my baby. You bonded with my husband. You turned my followers against me. Her voice rose to a shriek. But you can't have them. You can't have any of it. Sirens wailed in the distance. Julio was pale, still on with emergency services. Rachel, the police are coming, I said firmly. Get out of my apartment. Oh, I'm leaving. Her voice turned sing-song. But I'm taking what matters most. Check your email, sister dear. See what happens when you try to steal someone's life. The line went dead. My email pinged with a new message from Rachel. Attached was a video of my apartment, completely destroyed. Every photo, every memory of the pregnancy, everything connected to Oliver was smashed or torn apart. But worse was the final frame. Rachel holding up papers, the original surrogacy contract with the crucial clause. Looking for this? Her voice taunted. Good luck proving anything without it. Julio grabbed my arm as I swayed. We have copies. The judge wanted the original, I whispered, for next week's hearing. My phone buzzed one final time, a text from Rachel. You win, Hadley. You get to keep the memories, but I get to keep Oliver. Forever. Try finding us now. Julio was already calling his bank, his voice shaking. Freeze all accounts, now. Emergency situation. But we both knew it was too late. Rachel had planned this. While we thought she was spiraling, she was actually setting her trap. Oh God, I breathed, reality hitting me. She's going to run with him. And suddenly this wasn't about revenge anymore. This wasn't about contracts or visitation rights or family drama. This was about keeping a baby safe from a mother in the midst of a psychological break. And I had helped push her to this point. The emergency hearing was called within hours. Judge Gibson looked grim as he reviewed the police reports, the threatening texts, and the video of my destroyed apartment. Where is Mrs. Steele now? He asked. We can't locate her or the baby, Seth replied. Her credit cards were used at the airport 3 hours ago, but she had multiple tickets booked to different locations. Julio sat beside me, his face ashen. She's not answering my calls. She thinks I betrayed her. Your Honor, Rachel's lawyer stood. My client has been under extreme emotional duress. Your client is in contempt of court and has abducted an infant, Judge Gibson snapped. Are you in contact with her? No, Your Honor. She fired me via text an hour ago. The courtroom doors burst open. My mother rushed in, clutching her phone. She called me, Mom said breathlessly. Rachel called me. Everyone turned. The judge leaned forward. When? 10 minutes ago. She's not making sense. Talking about how we all conspired against her, how Hadley's trying to steal her life. Mom's voice broke. She said she's taking Oliver somewhere safe, where none of us can corrupt him. Did she say where? Julio demanded. No, but... Mom pulled out her phone. I recorded it. I knew something was wrong. The courtroom fell silent as Rachel's voice filled the room, high-pitched and frantic. He's mine, Mom, mine! They all want to take him. Hadley's poisoning everyone against me. She was supposed to be just a vessel, but she's trying to replace me. Well, she can't have him. No one can. I'll raise him somewhere pure, somewhere safe from all of you. Judge Gibson's gavel cracked. I'm issuing an emergency custody order. Mr. Steele will have temporary full custody once the child is located. Miss Jordan will have secondary rights as biological mother. Mrs. Steele is to have no unsupervised contact until a full psychological evaluation. Your Honor, I stood. She needs help, not punishment. She's sick. I agree, the judge said softly. But right now, our priority is the safe return of that baby. Suddenly, Ava burst into the courtroom, waving her phone. I found her! Rachel's live on Instagram. The court clerk quickly pulled up the feed on the main screen. Rachel appeared, looking wild-eyed, Oliver crying in her arms. You all think I'm crazy, she was saying, but I see the truth. My sister, my husband, my own mother, all conspiring to take my baby. Well, here's what happens when you try to steal someone's life. The camera panned to show she was on a boat. Dark water churned behind her. Oh, God, Julio whispered. Rachel, I called out, though I knew she couldn't hear me. Please don't do this. I'm going somewhere none of you can follow, Rachel continued. Somewhere pure. Just me and my son. My real family. Oliver's cries grew louder. The boat rocked. Mrs. Steele, Judge Gibson spoke sharply into the court's emergency response system. This is Judge Gibson. You are in violation of multiple court orders. Tell us your location immediately. Rachel laughed. A judge? You brought a judge to our family reunion? She pulled Oliver closer, too tight. He screamed, No one can judge me. I'm protecting my son. I'm saving him from all of you. Coast Guard units deployed, someone announced. Signal traced to Marina District. Rachel, listen to me, I pleaded to the screen. This isn't you. This is the disease. Remember who you are. Remember who we were. Sisters, best friends. Please, let us help you. Something flickered in her eyes. For a moment, my sister, my real sister, seemed to surface. Hadley, she whispered, I don't feel right. I know, I said softly, and that's okay. Just come back. We'll face this together. Oliver's cries pierced the moment. Rachel's eyes hardened again. No, you're trying to trick me. Like you tricked me with the contract, like you're all trying to trick me now. She stood unsteadily, the boat rocking dangerously. Stay away from us. Coast Guard units 2 minutes out, someone called. Rachel, Julio tried. Think about Oliver. Please. I'm thinking about Oliver, she screamed. I'm saving him. The boat lurched. Rachel stumbled. Oliver slipped in her arms. Everyone in the courtroom gasped. Got her location, someone shouted. Marina Pier 7. But I was already running, Julio right behind me. Because I knew that pier. I knew those waters. And I knew my sister was about to do something that could never be undone. Please, I prayed as we raced through the streets. Please let us get there in time. Behind us, the Instagram feed continued to broadcast, showing my sister's descent into chaos and an innocent baby caught in the middle of a storm none of us saw coming. The marina air hit me like a wall of ice as I sprinted down Pier 7. Coast Guard lights strobed across the water, illuminating Rachel's small boat rocking violently in their wake. "Stay back!" Rachel screamed, clutching Oliver. "All of you!" "Rachel," I called out, inching forward. "Give me the baby." "So you can steal him?" She backed toward the boat's edge. "Never!" Oliver's cries echoed across the water. The Coast Guard was closing in from both sides. "Remember when we were 10? I said, taking another careful step. "When I fell into Dad's pool, you jumped in to save me, even though you were scared of water." Rachel blinked rapidly. I remember. You're my big sister. You've always protected me." Another step. "Let me protect you now." "No!" She shook her head violently. "You're manipulating me, like always." The boat rocked harder. Oliver screamed louder. "Mrs. Steele," a Coast Guard officer called. "Put the baby down." "Rachel," Julio's voice came from behind me. "Please, look at our son. Really look at him." She did. For a moment, clarity seemed to break through. He's crying because he needs his mom," I said softly. "His real mom, the Rachel I know, the sister I love." Her legs buckled. I lunged forward, catching Oliver as Rachel collapsed. Coast Guard officers swarmed the boat, securing her as she sobbed. "I'm sorry," she wept. "I'm so sorry. What's happening to me?" I held Oliver close, his tiny heart hammering against mine as Julio wrapped his arms around us both. "It's okay," I whispered. "We're going to get through this. All of us." The hospital waiting room was quiet, except for Oliver's soft cooing. He was safe in Julio's arms while we waited for news about Rachel. "Bipolar I with postpartum psychosis," the doctor explained when she finally emerged. "The medication withdrawal triggered a severe manic episode. She'll need intensive treatment, but with proper care and support, many patients recover well." "Can we see her?" I asked. The doctor nodded. "She's asking for you both." Rachel lay in the hospital bed, looking small and fragile. Gone was the perfectly curated social media queen. Here was just my sister, broken but finally real. "I ruined everything," she whispered. "No," I sat beside her. "You're sick, but you're getting help now." "How can you even look at me after what I did to you? To Oliver?" "Because you're my sister, and he needs his mother." I took her hand. "The real you." Tears slid down her face. I was so scared of losing him, of losing everything. And I almost... She choked on a sob. "But you didn't," Julio said firmly. "We're all still here." A nurse brought Oliver in. Rachel tensed, but I guided her arms into the right position. "Hello, my baby," she whispered. "Mommy's so sorry." Oliver grabbed her finger, and for the first time, I saw my sister smile. Really smile, not the practiced Instagram version. "The judge amended the custody order," I told her. "Once you're stable and following treatment, you'll have supervised visits. We'll work up from there." "We?" she asked. "All of us. Together." I squeezed her hand. "No more vessels, no more contracts, just family." She looked down at Oliver, then back at me. "I don't deserve this chance." "Maybe not," I said honestly. "But Oliver deserves to have his whole family, healthy and whole." "And that includes you," Julio added. "The real you." Rachel's eyes filled with tears again, but different ones this time. Healing ones. "Will you help me?" she asked softly. "Both of you?" "I can't do this alone." "You're not alone," I promised. "Not anymore." Oliver made a small sound, and we all looked down at him, this tiny being who had brought out both the worst and best in us all. "Sing to him," Rachel whispered. "Grandmother's lullaby. Please?" So I did, my voice joining with Rachel's halfway through, shaky but growing stronger. "Just like us." Outside the hospital room, I heard my mother crying quietly, heard Ava and Seth talking with the doctors about treatment plans and support systems, but in that room, It was just us, a sister who lost her way and found it again, a baby who brought us to the brink and back, and me, learning that sometimes the greatest revenge isn't about winning or losing. Sometimes it's about being strong enough to help put someone back together, even after they've tried to break you. We're going to be okay, I said, and for the first time since this all began, I actually believed it. Because sometimes the happy ending isn't about getting everything you wanted. Sometimes it's about finding something better, something real, in the wreckage of what you thought you needed. And as I watched my sister hold her son, singing our grandmother's lullaby, I knew we had found exactly that.
Leave all the paperwork to me, I told Mike. After we got married, the idea of buying a house began to take shape, but he handed all the responsibilities to me. I figured he didn't want his limited days off consumed by work. I had a job too, but with more free time, so I took the lead as he'd asked. Just as I was about to finalize a deal with our real estate agent, she dropped a bombshell. Your husband's name can't be used to purchase this property due to his annual income. My heart sank. I had no idea his salary was so low. We adjusted the deed to my name and completed the purchase. I'm Anne, a 29-year-old web designer, now in my 7th year in the field. After graduating, I left my first job to pursue freelancing, which I've been doing for the past year. My focus has always been on my work rather than on finances. I've invested my earnings in stocks and built up my assets. My husband, Mike, is 5 years older and works as a delivery driver in the transportation industry. We met by chance at a train station where he chased me down to return the wallet I dropped. Grateful, I invited him to lunch, and before long, we were dating. A year and a half ago, we tied the knot. However, married life hasn't unfolded as I envisioned. Mike works long hours at a demanding job, and my freelancing often leaves me swamped with projects. Currently, we live in a cramped apartment under 400 square feet, and I've been daydreaming about moving into a house. I thought it might inspire us both in our careers. Living in such tight quarters has been stressful, so I decided to bring it up on his day off. Hey, Mike, don't you think it's time we looked for a new house now that we're married? He jumped up from the sofa, sleep still in his eyes, clearly surprised. A house? Sure. This place is feeling small. How about I set some conditions? I blinked, taken aback, as he jotted down his conditions on a notepad. His list included at least 4 rooms, 2 bathrooms, and a wine cellar. I was bewildered. Do we really need a wine cellar? Isn't 1 bathroom enough? I argued, trying to keep things practical. No, that's not acceptable. This is about romance. Buying a house is a once-in-a-lifetime event. I won't settle for anything half-hearted. He insisted, his stubbornness infuriating. I'd rather spend my energy working than debating pointless details. Reluctantly, I agreed to his demands. Okay, let's visit the real estate agent together next time. But suddenly, he looked annoyed. Nah, you can take care of all that, Anne. I'm too tired from work. Just handle it. He flopped back onto the sofa, engrossed in his phone. Does he even realize we're married? We're about to make one of the biggest purchases of our lives, and he's completely checked out. After stating his desires, he returned to his own world, disheartened. I sighed. Just leave me something that shows your income. I'll need it for the review. You can find it in my box of valuables. Just take it yourself, he replied, putting on his earphones, signaling the end of the conversation. He's not exactly a henpecked husband, but he tends to prioritize his wants while remaining disengaged. Honestly, it feels like he's become self-centered. The sweet guy who returned my wallet seems like a distant memory. I muttered my frustrations under my breath as I headed to my room. That night, I noticed something was off with my body. After wrapping up work, I glanced at the calendar. I realized I hadn't had my period for 2 months. My menstrual cycles were often severe and irregular, so a late month wasn't unusual. But 2 months? My heart raced. Could it be? Anxious, I grabbed the pregnancy test I'd kept on hand. The result was positive. Mike, I'm pregnant. My announcement froze him in front of the TV. Seriously, I continued, feeling the weight of impending parenthood. We should speed up our house hunt. I'm going to see the real estate agent tomorrow. He still looked stunned, disbelief written across his face, but then he shocked me with his next words. What if we just don't have the baby? What? Not have it? I stammered, bewildered. Why would you even think that? I never intended for this to happen. He shrugged. I thought we were just having fun. His thoughtlessness cut deep. I felt as if I'd been struck with a hammer. If we have a child, we can't have fun anymore, he said, sounding like a petulant child. But I wouldn't back down. This was a precious life growing inside me, and a child needed a father. I had to make him understand the gravity of the situation. Looking back, I realized how misguided my thoughts were at the time. Mike, please get it together. People in their 30s around the world start families earlier than we do. I'm willing to give it my all, but you need to step up too. Perhaps moved by my determination, my husband reluctantly relented. All right, I'll do my part. A sense of relief washed over me, and the next day, I went to meet with the real estate agent. The price will be higher than the market average with the conditions you've requested, the agent said, his brow furrowing as he reviewed my list. He then handed me a sheet of paper. This is the only property that meets all your specifications. Among the various options, there was just one that checked all the boxes, but it came with a staggering price tag of $700,000. Given our extensive criteria, the cost was steep, especially now that we were expecting another family member. I couldn't bring myself to compromise. After some deliberation, I declared, I'll buy this property. We moved forward with the purchase process. Please fill out the necessary items on the application form. Who will be the owner? My husband. I began writing, but my pen halted when I reached the annual income section. Wait, Mike earns $25,000. I blurted, shocked as I glanced at the salary statement he had given me. We rarely discussed finances. We both contributed equally to our expenses and saved whatever was left, so I had no clue about my husband's income. It's tough to say, but with that amount, the application might not get approved, the apologetic agent said, his words leaving me feeling embarrassed. By the way, there are a couple of other clients interested in this property. If you don't decide today, it might be sold. The pressure was palpable, and I felt cornered. After hesitating for a moment, I decided to change the ownership to my name. Then, in a bold move, I chose to pay in full. I could easily cover the cost with my savings from stock investments and my grandfather's inheritance. I could always save more later. The agent was initially taken aback by my decision but quickly adapted and managed the rest of the process efficiently. A month later, we moved into our dream home. Wow, this is amazing, Mike exclaimed, excitement lighting up his face as we stepped inside. By the way, are you planning to go back to your parents' house to have the baby? He asked while unpacking boxes. Yes, that's the plan. My hometown is Anchorage. I could have the baby here, but I'd feel more comfortable at my parents' place. Okay, good luck, he replied, but his words felt distant. Doubts began to creep in, as he added, I can't quit my job after the baby arrives, so you'll need to handle the childcare. You're the one who wanted this. My anxiety spiked. What about my job? I asked, my voice shaky. I don't care about that, he shot back, blunt and dismissive. Was his initial support just a fleeting response? As time passed in our new home, I felt the weight of despair settle in as our relationship grew increasingly strained. With only 3 weeks until my due date, my belly growing, I returned to my hometown, where I safely gave birth to a beautiful boy. However, he was born with weak lung function and had to be hospitalized for observation, which meant I had to return to Boston alone. Before I left, my mother said, come back anytime if you need to. In that moment, I truly grasped the essence of motherhood. While I was home, I confided in my parents about my married life. As I shared my thoughts, I noticed their faces growing more somber, and my father's words began to resonate with me. 2 hours after boarding the plane, I arrived back in Boston. I headed straight to our new house, only to find an unfamiliar car parked in the driveway. An uneasy feeling washed over me as I cautiously opened the front door. Inside, I saw shoes scattered everywhere and heard my husband's voice coming from the back. Mom, Dad, feel free to use any of the spare rooms. That's when it hit me, his parents were in our home. I walked into the living room and found his entire family gathered there, his father, mother, 2 brothers, and 2 sisters, including my husband, 7 people in total. What are you all doing here? I demanded as I stepped into the room. Everyone turned to look at me. You're back, You had a boy, huh? Ignoring his casual question, I pressed on. Why didn't you answer my calls? I tried so many times. His sister Mary interjected. Calm down. How's the baby? We were all looking forward to meeting our first grandchild. For now, I replied. He has some lung issues, so I left him in Anchorage. But why are all of you here? The in-laws exchanged glances, and my husband spoke up, as if to represent them. I thought this house was too big for just the two of us, and cleaning it would be a hassle. Plus, with the baby on the way, we're all going to live together, 8 of us, including my family. If you don't like it, you can leave. I was speechless. What was he talking about? While I had been struggling through childbirth, he had moved his family in without a second thought, and now he was suggesting I could just walk out? Stunned, I stood frozen for a moment. Then he reiterated. What's it going to be? Are you staying or leaving? As I looked at his indifferent expression, my father's words echoed in my mind. Leave. Leave such a worthless husband and come back here. We can sell the house for a good amount. Sometimes letting go is an important choice. His words made this absurd scene feel trivial, and before I knew it, I spoke up. It seems there's a misunderstanding. I came here to sell the house. My words were a mix of truth and deceit. Since my father had urged me to return home, I had been contemplating our new house. Selling it felt wasteful, yet staying with my husband was becoming increasingly unbearable. So why not just sell it? It was the right moment to express this. I wasn't being emotional. It was necessary. My husband and his family were clearly taken aback by my declaration. Wait a minute. The house is in my name, isn't it? Don't make decisions on your own. That's right. I haven't told you yet, have I? I replied, feeling a sense of empowerment. Told me what? His irritation was palpable. You remember how you left all the house buying details to me, right? Is that so? Even if you had asked me, I wouldn't have known, he retorted. The murmurs among my in-laws grew louder. I interrupted their chatter, saying, that's not important right now. My husband snapped back. To put it simply, your income wasn't enough to pass the credit check for buying a house. I was shocked to learn that at 34, he only earned $25,000. One of my brothers-in-law reacted immediately. What? No way. I make $40,000. The youngest, Emma, who was 27, chimed in with disbelief. As my revelation stirred the room, I noticed my husband starting to sweat, panic setting in. Don't say unnecessary things, he pleaded, his forehead glistening. The truth is the truth, right? The moment you learned I was pregnant, you suggested abortion. Looking back, I should have left you then. The shock on my in-laws' faces deepened. It was evident my husband hadn't confided in them. Please stop this. You're reaping what you sowed, he protested, desperation creeping into his voice. In contrast, I felt calm. I could see the turmoil on his face as Tom, one of his brothers, asked, so why are you selling the house? Because Mike's income wasn't enough to pass the credit check. I decided to purchase it outright. You earn that much? Mike's voice dripped with disbelief. I have a good income from my work. Unlike you, I don't squander money. I've always invested my spare cash in stocks. Now, I can live off the profits and dividends alone. The entire family fell silent, processing my words. I assessed the situation, realizing I was the rightful owner of the house, which meant my husband and his family had no say in the matter. But Mike wasn't ready to accept that. Please don't sell it. Let's live together happily, okay? His strained expression was a mix of desperation and confusion. Seeing how pathetic he looked, I firmly rejected him. Don't be ridiculous. You left everything to others, and now you think you can dictate this? Keep your jokes to yourself. I won't forgive you for what you said about our baby. We're getting a divorce. The word divorce sent a clear wave of panic through my husband. All eyes turned to him, and the weight of the moment hung heavily in the air. Divorce? No, that can't be true. Why did you even think about living with your parents without consulting me? I finally voiced the question that had been weighing heavily on my mind. I wanted to do something for my parents. I thought it was the right thing to do. It was my father-in-law who reacted first to my husband's statement. Don't be ridiculous. It's not filial to take advantage of someone else's hard work and effort. That's right. We came here half expecting you bought the house yourself. But this is just betrayal. My brother is the worst. I can't believe this, came the chorus of disbelief from his siblings. To my surprise, my husband was suddenly under attack from his entire family. I watched as he visibly shrank under their criticisms. Please stop this, he weakly pleaded, but it was clear that everyone was fed up with him. Then both of my in-laws turned to me, offering a deep apology. We're terribly sorry for our son's behavior. We'll leave quietly. Mike, you can do as you please with him, his mother said, her voice sharp. Be quiet, she snapped back at him. He trembled at her words, resembling a male lion being expelled from the pride, stripped of any charm he once had as a man and husband. I addressed him directly. You see now, right? You and I live in different worlds. Chase your own dreams alone. Goodbye. Let's discuss the rest legally, including child support. As I said this, he slowly sank to his knees, remaining motionless for what felt like an eternity. 2 days later, we signed the divorce papers. Next on the agenda was child support. Naturally, I would get custody. My husband lacked both the means and the temperament to raise a child. Just the thought of handing my baby over to such a self-centered man made my skin crawl. Afterward, I returned to Anchorage to pick up my hospitalized child and then back to my parents' house. I could raise my child in peace here. Thankfully, my work is all online, so I wasn't tied down by location. Now, I could live freely and comfortably. As for my ex-husband, he was disowned by his parents after that day and now lives in solitude. I still keep in touch with my former in-laws, so I hear about his situation. My ex-husband, who had always spoken without delicacy, I had naively hoped might change. This experience taught me that people don't change that easily. However, better days are waiting for me now than when I was with my ex-husband. With the arrival of my newborn, I'm now a mother. I must work hard at both my job and parenting. These thoughts filled my mind as I prepared to feed my baby for the first time. Have you finished moving yet? Hurry up and get out. There's no place for someone like you here. Helen, my mother-in-law, cackled over the phone, her voice grating on my nerves. Poor woman. She has no idea what's coming. After all the torment she's put me through, I'm ready to give her a taste of her own medicine. I'm Gloria, a 30-year-old housewife, married to Victor. Together, we manage our finances as a dual-income couple. Despite our equal financial contributions, Victor's clumsiness meant I handled most of the housework while working from home. Ever since we married, Victor has dreamt of building our own house, and his dedication inspired me. After 2 years of hard work, we finally moved into our beautiful new home, complete with gleaming floors. I can't wait for our new life together, I told Victor, full of optimism. We can make this work. At his insistence, we built our house near his parents' place so he could keep an eye on Helen, who had a minor illness but didn't truly need care. I thought it was a reasonable compromise, never expecting things to spiral out of control. A few weeks after our move, Helen made an unexpected visit. I was flustered but managed to offer her some cookies. As she sat on the couch sipping tea, she turned to me and said, "You know, Gloria, now that you're here, let's be honest. How do you feel about being my son's wife?" My careless reply earned me a heavy sigh from her. Victor tells me you're a good wife, but offering such mediocre cookies to a guest, and you never visit our house, despite marrying my son? A daughter-in-law should make an effort. If you have spare time, come to my place. There's always so much to do. Do you understand? Okay, was the only response I could muster. Helen hadn't been this way when we first met. She had seemed warm and welcoming. If you need anything, let me know. Take your time settling in, she had said. And I had taken her words to heart, never expecting her demeanor to shift so dramatically. In response to my meek reply, she frowned. You clearly lack the backbone to be my son's wife. Starting tomorrow, I'll be here every day. It's a mother-in-law's duty to straighten out a daughter-in-law's twisted nature. After all, her laughter rang out as I felt my anxiety mounting. Would I really have to endure her daily visits? Cold sweat trickled down my back at the thought, but after sampling the cookies, she surprisingly remarked that they were decent before leaving. That marked the beginning of my nightmare. True to her word, Helen began visiting our home every single day. Her visits were never consistent, sometimes in the morning and other times in the afternoon. I always prepared snacks, but it was never enough. More cheap stuff? She'd scoff. I thought it might help to ask her what she preferred, but that only led to ridiculous accusations. Can't you understand my feelings, Gloria? There's dust over there. Clean it up. And you're ruining those clothes by washing them like that. Do it again. What's for dinner? This is terrible. How can you serve Victor such slop? Helen criticized everything in sight, completely indifferent to my feelings. One weekend, as Victor was home from work, Helen continued her relentless harassment, seeing me rush around to meet her demands. Victor remarked, "You're lucky to be trained by Mom." After she left, I poured my heart out to him about her treatment, but he dismissed my concerns. "Mom's just looking out for you in her own way," he said, brushing me off. When I insisted it was mentally overwhelming, he became irritated and shouted, "Do you hate Mom that much?" Feeling it was pointless to confide in him, I stopped sharing my struggles and began to feel physically drained. Despite my exhaustion, sleep eluded me. As soon as I settled into bed, anxiety about the next day surged, eclipsing any drowsiness. The familiar dread of facing Helen's criticism loomed large in my mind. What will she say next? I wondered, unable to escape the cycle of worry. Gradually, even the simple act of going to bed became a struggle, forcing me to work and tackle house chores throughout the night. My body quickly became worn out, and I began to lose weight. "Gloria, what's with that face? Victor would be scared to see you like this. You look like a monster," Helen scoffed. When I glanced in the mirror, I was greeted by dark circles under my eyes and hollow cheeks, a reflection I couldn't bear to show anyone. A bitter smile tugged at my lips. "Really? You're so useless. With a wife like you, Victor will be a disaster at work. You can't even manage basic housework, and that's the face you greet him with? Poor Victor. Gloria, you should just leave today," Helen suddenly demanded. I was taken aback by her abrupt order and stood there, frozen. "You must," she insisted before striding out. Defying her would only invite more scorn. So in my mentally fragile state, I began packing my things. Just a few minutes later, my phone rang. It was Helen again. "Have you finished moving? Leave quickly. There's no place for someone like you. You should be grateful to have stayed in that house at all." Her laughter echoed through the phone, filled with a sense of triumph as if she had just defeated a villain. I left the house as she commanded, the home we had built to realize our dreams. I returned to my parents' house and explained everything. When they learned the full story, my parents were furious, but they first showered me with delicious food, allowing me to rest. There's an undeniable sense of security that comes from being at home with family. I struggled to articulate my grievances, but my parents listened patiently, offering gentle reassurances like, "That must have been tough, and I understand." It dawned on me that I hadn't returned home since all my troubles with Helen had begun. My parents must have been shocked to see their daughter so frail after all this time. Feeling guilty for my perceived disobedience, my phone vibrated. It was a call from Helen. With trepidation, I answered, and her panicked voice flooded through the line. "You need to come back right now." After demanding I leave, she was now insisting I return. I was taken aback by her unreasonable and selfish request, but something about her tone struck me as unusual. Helen explained the situation, and I felt my heart race as I listened in shock. Apparently, Victor had come home and realized
I was away when I reached out to Helen, who I assumed would be visiting that day. Upon hearing from her that she had kicked me out, Victor's face went pale. It made sense. After all, the house we lived in was under my name. Although we were a dual-income couple, most of our expenses were covered by my salary, while Victor's paycheck was shockingly low, evident from his ashen lips. There was no way he could afford to build a new house on his own, and our dream of homeownership was nearly shattered. Witnessing Victor's determination, I decided I would support him in building that house. Since I had taken out the loan, it was only natural that the house was in my name. Realizing this, Helen began to panic. "I'm sorry, but I'm not coming back," I told her firmly. "Don't say that. It was my fault," she pleaded. I delivered my final blow also. "Since I'm no longer living there, I'll be vacating the house. Please take care of it." Wait. Helen's desperation was palpable, but I ignored her cries and hung up the phone. I promptly blocked her number to avoid any more unpleasant calls. The next day, I began the process of vacating the house as I had declared. This meant Victor would have to leave too, but what he did next was no longer my concern. Afterward, I hired a lawyer, a skilled friend of my dad's. I had secretly recorded Helen's terrible behavior, as well as some of Victor's. As the lawyer listened to the recordings, he remarked, "With this evidence, you could receive a substantial amount in alimony." I left everything in the capable hands of my lawyer and was able to divorce Victor. Following his advice, I visited a doctor and was diagnosed with depression, which increased my alimony claim. After that, my phone was flooded with messages from Victor, all begging for forgiveness and pleading for another chance. With no house and a meager salary, he wouldn't be able to afford the hefty alimony, but I ignored his requests and blocked his messages. A few days later, while I was relaxing at home, a loud doorbell interrupted my peace. It was Helen and Victor standing at my door. I ignored them, but they began pounding insistently, calling out, "Gloria!" My parents were out and wouldn't be back soon, so I reluctantly responded through the monitor, "Hello." Hearing my voice, they hastily started apologizing from the other side of the door. "Gloria, I'm truly sorry. Please give Victor another chance. I'm sorry I wasn't there for you as a husband. I'll try to be a better support. Please come back." Their words felt hollow, coming from the same people who had scorned and laughed at me. I couldn't help but let out a snort of disbelief. "Stop laughing," Victor shouted angrily from the other side, his rage evident. Helen flinched back in fear. I could see neighbors peeking out due to the commotion, and I frowned, unsure of what to do. The pounding on the door continued, sturdy though it was. What if it broke? Just then, a savior appeared on the monitor of police officers. It seemed a neighbor must have called them. Victor, who had been causing a scene, was quickly restrained and taken away. This incident played a crucial role in finalizing my divorce from Victor. Moreover, I was awarded a substantial amount in alimony. News of Victor and Helen's behavior spread quickly among the neighbors, making them uncomfortable. It was a natural consequence of all the harassment they had subjected me to. I learned that Helen had been visiting my house without her husband's knowledge, and when he discovered the commotion, he chose to divorce her. Despite Helen's pleas and desperation, her ex-husband stood firm in his decision, and they ultimately divorced. The house they had lived in was sold, leaving Victor and Helen in an old apartment, alone and miserable. Because of the incident at my parents' house, the amount of alimony I could claim from Victor increased even further in amount he couldn't possibly pay on his meager salary. I demanded full payment, which forced Victor to borrow money from consumer finance companies, leaving him in a desperate scramble to pay off his debts. Both he and Helen have reportedly been working tirelessly day and night, even taking on evening shifts at construction sites. With their home lost and drowning in debt, they turned to their relatives for help. But given their past behavior, not a single family member came to their aid. In fact, they distanced themselves from Victor and Helen. Feeling abandoned by both their ex-husband and blood relatives, they even reached out to friends, only to be continually cut off. A mutual friend of Victor and mine mentioned that they kept sending desperate messages like, "We have no money, please help us." If ignored, they would call repeatedly. Their behavior was utterly unreasonable, and it seemed unlikely that anyone would be willing to help them now. This is what happens when you prioritize your own interests over others. If they had considered the feelings of those around them, offered a helping hand, or shown even a hint of goodwill toward me, perhaps things wouldn't have turned out this way. Meanwhile, I've been recuperating at my parents' house, continuing my work, and even started dating a man I met through my job. He knows about my past marriage, and gently acknowledges how hard it must have been for me. His thoughtfulness has been a balm for my still recovering mental state. He supports me at work and takes me to beautiful places on weekends, as he frequently visits my parents to see me. They seem to think he's a good match. Recently, he even invited me to go jewelry shopping together. hinting at a potential happy future with him. This time, I refuse to make the same mistakes. I will say no to things that don't sit well with me and actively work to improve situations before they worsen. It's not just for my sake, it's essential for ensuring my happiness with him as we move forward together. I'm determined to learn from my past and to do my best in my own way. As I stepped into the quiet of my home, the familiar buzz of my phone pulled me out of my thoughts. After a long week abroad for business, I was jet-lagged but glad to be back. Seeing my mother-in-law Julie's name flash on the screen, I hesitated. Her calls were unpredictable, swinging between idle chatter and sudden pleas for money. But something about this one felt different. There was a strange urgency in the way she answered. "Olivia, you won't believe this," she practically shouted, her voice vibrating with excitement. "You've just saved $100, 000. I frowned. See, her words hanging in the air like a heavy mist. What was she talking about? $100, 000. My mind raced. As a freelance jewelry designer, I was careful with money, always mindful of our savings, but I had never accumulated anything near that figure, nor would I ever stash such a sum in an easily accessible place. My bank cards had been with me the entire trip." Julie carried on as if it were no big deal. "You left it in the sideboard drawer. I figured, since you're doing so well, it wouldn't hurt for me to use it." A knot tightened in my stomach. "What are you talking about?" I asked, doing my best to keep my voice calm. "I didn't leave any money in the drawer." But before I could get more out of her, she hurriedly thanked me, casually hinting that she might need more financial help soon. Then, just like that, she hung up, leaving me standing in the middle of my living room, stunned. I stared at my phone, trying to make sense of what she had said. $100, 000 in the sideboard. My hands trembled as I walked over to the drawer. I opened it slowly, already knowing what I'd find. Nothing. Of course, it was empty. But what was Julie thinking? Was this some bizarre misunderstanding, or had something far more troubling just occurred? Larry, my husband, would be home soon, and I was determined to get answers. The longer I waited, the more anxious I became. Could Larry have left that money there? But why? We've always been responsible, especially since we started the jewelry business together. Larry had even quit his corporate job recently to help manage the brand, and we'd been working hard to maintain our finances carefully. When Larry finally walked through the door, I didn't waste any time. "Julie called," I said, unable to hide the tension in my voice. "She said she took $100, 000 from the sideboard. Do you know anything about that?" Larry's face went pale, and my heart sank. He rubbed the back of his neck, his eyes avoiding mine. "He didn't think she'd actually take it," he mumbled, his voice barely audible. "What are you talking about?" I demanded, my pulse quickening. He let out a long sigh, finally meeting my gaze. "A few weeks ago, Julie asked for more money. You know how she isolates, assuming we're flush with cash because of the business. She doesn't realize that most of it goes toward expenses, not luxuries. Anyway, she racked up more debt, credit cards, loans. It spiraled out of control." A chill ran down my spine. "And what does that have to do with $100, 000? I was trying to help her get out of the mess," Larry admitted, guilt weighing down his words. "I withdrew the money to pay off some of her debts, but I hadn't told you yet. I thought I had time to deal with it before you got back. I didn't think she'd just take it from the house." I could barely process what I was hearing. Julie had always been reckless with money, but this, taking such a huge amount without permission, and worse, Larry, my husband, who I trusted completely, had hidden this from me. He had stashed a significant amount of money in our home, and his own mother had taken it. "Larry," I said, my voice shaking, "do you even realize what you've done? This isn't just about the money, it's about trust. How could you keep this from me? He sank into a chair, his shoulders slumped in defeat. I know, he whispered. I was just trying to protect you from the stress. We've been doing so well, and I didn't want Julie's problems to pull us down. But it was too late for that. Julie's reckless actions and Larry's secrecy had already cast a shadow over everything, and now the weight of it all was dragging us under. This wasn't the first time Julie had stirred up trouble. Over the years, she had developed a habit of asking for money under the pretense of needing help, though more often than not, it was for frivolous things, parties, new clothes, even vacations. Larry, in an effort to keep the peace, would always give in, thinking that a little financial support would smooth things over, but every time he caved, it only seemed to fuel her sense of entitlement. Julie had never grasped the reality of our situation. From the outside, she saw our growing business, the glamorous events we attended, the polished image we projected. What she didn't see were the long hours, the constant financial balancing act, the weight of the responsibility we carried. Every dollar we spent was meticulously planned to ensure our brand's survival. We weren't living in luxury, we're living in survival mode. Yet despite all this, Larry remained soft when it came to his mother. He hated confrontation, and avoiding conflict with Julie had always been his default. He'd rather give her what she wanted than face one of her tantrums. But now, the stakes were higher than ever. This wasn't a situation that could be solved with a handout or a quiet apology. Julie had crossed a line, and this time, we couldn't afford to let it slide. I looked at Larry, my frustration bubbling over. We can't keep doing this. Julie's out of control. You have to stop giving in to her demands. Larry nodded, regret etched into his face. I know, this has gone too far. In the days that followed, Julie's calls became more frequent, her requests growing in size. At first, it was small favors, but soon it escalated money for a new dress, a designer handbag, and even a lavish party she was planning. Every time, Larry would try to explain that we couldn't afford to keep giving her money, but she refused to listen. In her mind, we had more than enough, and she was entitled to enjoy it too. Then, one day, everything took an unexpected turn. Julie showed up at our front door, her face flushed with anger. Why didn't you tell me the money had strings attached? She snapped the moment she stepped inside. Larry and I exchanged confused looks. What are you talking about? I asked, trying to stay calm, though I felt anything but. The $100,000. She shot back. I tried to buy something, and my card was declined. Why did you put limits on my spending? Larry's eyes widened in shock. You maxed out the card already. Julie folded her arms defiantly. It's not fair. You two are always going to fancy places, buying expensive things. Why shouldn't I get to enjoy myself too? I could hardly believe what I was hearing. Julie, we're not spending money for photos or business expenses. It's not the same thing. But it's all money, she argued, clearly not understanding the difference. You just don't want me to have any fun. Something inside me snapped. This isn't about fun, Julie. You took money that wasn't yours and spent it without asking. That's theft, plain and simple. Julie looked stunned, as if she hadn't even considered that. But I'm family, she protested, as if that excused her actions. Family or not, it was wrong, I said firmly. You've put us in a difficult position. Larry, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. Julie, we've tried to help you, but this has gone too far. We can't keep funding your lifestyle. You need to take responsibility. Julie didn't take the news well. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. For a while, we didn't hear from her. I thought maybe she had finally realized the seriousness of her actions, but I was wrong. The calls resumed, but this time, they were filled with desperation. Olivia, please, I need your help, Julie begged during one call. The creditors are after me, they're threatening to take everything. I could hear the fear in her voice, but I also knew we couldn't bail her out again. We'd already sacrificed so much, and now our own future was on the line. One evening, after another exhausting day, Larry's phone buzzed again with a call from Julie. He stared at the screen for a moment before silencing it and setting the phone down with a heavy sigh. "We can't keep doing this," he said quietly, echoing the words I'd spoken weeks ago. "I've been enabling her for too long, and now she's in a mess I can't fix." I nodded, feeling the weight of his words. Julie had always relied on Larry to save her, but this time was different. The consequences were too great, and we couldn't afford to get dragged down with her. After much discussion, Larry made the difficult decision to cut ties with Julie financially. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when he doubted whether it was the right thing to do, but deep down, we both knew it was the only way forward. Julie needed to face the reality of her actions, and we needed to protect ourselves from the fallout of her reckless behavior. As we prepared for our move abroad to pursue a new business opportunity, we tried to put the ordeal with Julie behind us, but it wasn't easy. The calls continued, Julie pleading for help, but we had made our decision. We had drawn a line, one we could no longer afford to cross. The move overseas brought its own set of challenges, but it also opened doors we hadn't anticipated. Our business flourished in the international market, and soon offers were pouring in from around the world. It was an exhilarating time, yet bittersweet. As we settled into our new life, the thought of what we'd left behind lingered, especially Julie's situation. Julie had sold her house to cover her debts, but it wasn't enough. She moved into a small apartment, working part-time just to get by. It was a far cry from the life she'd once enjoyed, and while I felt sympathy for her, I also understood that her circumstances were the result of her own choices. The hard truth was that she'd been given chances plenty of them, and each time, she had chosen the wrong path. As the months passed, Larry and I often reflected on everything that had unfolded. The experience with Julie had taught us some hard, but valuable, lessons about boundaries, financial responsibility, and the need to protect what we had worked so hard to build. Our business and our life together were products of years of dedication, and we weren't going to let anyone, not even family, jeopardize that. Julie's story became a cautionary tale for us, a reminder of the importance of managing our resources wisely and staying true to our values. It hadn't been an easy journey, but we had come out stronger on the other side, more united than ever before. As I stood by the window of our new home, gazing out at the bustling cityscape, I thought about how far we'd come. The challenges with Julie had tested our relationship, but they had also strengthened it. Larry and I had learned to rely on each other, to communicate openly, and to set boundaries when needed. Our business was thriving, and though the future was still uncertain, we felt more prepared than ever to face it. The road ahead was full of possibilities, and whatever came our way, we knew we'd face it together, stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever the future had in store.
When you're in a vulnerable position, just getting through each day can feel like a struggle. It doesn't matter if you're out in the world or in the comfort of your own home. For someone like me, who feels weak and exposed, there's no true safe haven. I faced teasing, belittlement, and been treated as a punching bag by those around me. In a way, enduring all this pain became my way of justifying my existence. I waited for a miracle that felt utterly unattainable, bearing the weight of suffering and heartache. But now, I've made a choice to stop waiting, lift my head high, and forge my own path without glancing back. I'm Zoe, 28 years old. For nearly a decade, I've worked in programming, primarily from home. The demand for skilled programmers is always high, so there's more than enough work to wear me out. I manage multiple teams and oversee operations, transforming from the person once seen as the weakest to a leader. Life is truly unpredictable. In my youth, I was ridiculed for being gloomy and introverted, and this mockery didn't just come from my peers. It echoed at home too. My brother, Wesley, especially looked down on me, often mocking me until he left for college after finishing high school, leaving me with a sense of relief. After graduating high school myself, I didn't pursue higher education. Instead, I retreated into my room, as if isolating myself was my way of coping with the decision to forego further studies. For years, I rarely ventured outside, accumulating experience and achievements in my own little world. My mom and Wesley have always been quick to ridicule me, both then and now, but my dad was different. It's hard to understand how he ended up married to someone as harsh as my mom. He was gentle, the kind of person who provided comfort in tough times. I'd often curl up next to him at the pub he ran, crying as I sought solace. "It's okay, Zoe, just hang in there, your luck will turn around," he would say, though I could tell he was trying to convince himself too. The pub, a small establishment on the ground floor of our house, struggled to thrive, often running at a loss. This left my dad unable to stand up to my mom, who had a stable corporate job. The rent for the building was $3,000 a month, a hefty burden. 3 years ago, when my own career started to take off, I took over those rent payments. I'll never forget the look of disbelief on my dad's face when I made the offer. It was the first time I saw him smile like that, tears of gratitude welling in his eyes. To support my dad's business, I threw myself into my work like never before. It was during this time that I truly blossomed as a programmer. My job became my way of repaying my dad, and I found genuine happiness in that role. Sadly, my dad passed away suddenly about 6 months ago from an illness. The ache of his absence still lingers. I can cry endlessly, but I know I can't remain in a constant state of grief. After his death, Wesley returned home, having always been at odds with our father. He had married a few years back. His wife, Hannah, was a perfect match for his mean-spirited nature, sharp-tongued and cunning. In the absence of Dad, Wesley and Hannah started acting like they owned the place. "Hey, Zoe, still holed up in your room playing with your computer? Creepy." "Oh, that's not nice, Wesley." Poor Zoe. When they started teasing me, my mom joined in, adding her own attacks. Now retired, she spends her days at home, doing nothing but criticizing me. Each time she sees me, she clicks her tongue and mutters that I should just leave. "I wish you had taken Zoe with you, Dad." Every mocking word from Mom and every moment of isolation at home made me feel like there was no reason to stay. I needed to leave as soon as possible, to live for myself, especially now that I had no allies left after Dad's passing. Wesley, Hannah, and even Mom all clicked their tongues at the sight of me, treating me like a ghost. They ignored me completely, even eating their meals separately. My foster mother has always been the one I call Mom, but that's only out of necessity. I barely remember my biological mother, who died in a traffic accident before I was old enough to form memories. The absence of blood ties might explain why both my foster mom and my stepbrother, Wesley, can be so cold toward me. After Dad's death, Wesley and his wife took over the pub. They had always been interested in the food and beverage industry, but without hesitation, they closed down Dad's pub. Then, in a selfish move, they remodeled the place into a cafe. Wesley works weekends while keeping his regular job, and Hannah has taken on the role of manager. To fund the cafe's renovations, Wesley used Dad's inheritance without consulting me. Though I typically keep quiet, that crossed a line. I confronted him, anger boiling over. "That money was meant for me too. How can you use it without even asking? Don't raise your voice, introvert." From that moment on, Wesley's malicious attacks intensified. It became clear they wanted me gone, treating me like an unwanted intruder. "Ugh, just get out. Just looking at you makes me sick. It's like staring at a slug." Of course, Mom chimed in. "Exactly, get out. You're nothing but a nuisance, Zoe." Disgusted by their ignorance and arrogance, I started preparing to move out immediately, hoping they would be miserable without me. I found a nice apartment, signed the lease, and moved my things. I even treated myself to a new computer as a housewarming gift. On my last day at home, I turned to the three of them and said, "From now on, you'll need to handle the rent yourselves. I won't be paying it." "Wasn't this place owned by our parents?" Wesley replied, his stupidity never ceasing to amaze me. I didn't even feel like laughing. Mom, putting on a brave face, pretended not to care. "The rent is $3,000 a month. I hope the cafe sales can cover it." "Wait, Zoe, you were paying $3,000 a month?" Seeing Wesley's shock, I decided it was time to enlighten them. Over the past decade, I had started my own programming company, now employing around 40 skilled programmers. I had successfully led various projects, and for me, paying $3,000 a month was a drop in the bucket. My plan was to expand my business from my new apartment, turning this move into a fresh opportunity. As I finished, Wesley put on a forced smile and began to clap. "I didn't know that. Impressive. Zoe, you can stay here." "What? Don't leave. You can stay here, just like before, right, Mom?" Caught off guard, Mom nodded in surprise. "Yes, Wesley's right. No need for you to leave." "Wow, Zoe, I'm impressed. I've changed my mind about you." They had completely flipped their tune. Realizing my financial stability made me more valuable to them, but it was too late for their flattery. I picked up my last bag and stood up. How foolish. Just so you know, I won't be helping out. Goodbye. Despite their desperate attempts to hold me back, I walked out the door. I started my new life in a spacious apartment, working by a bright window with a cup of coffee in hand. No one complained. Whenever I wanted a change of scenery, I could head to a nearby cafe. With my newfound freedom, I gradually transformed my life. I began wearing clothes I loved and changed my hairstyle. I explored places and items that piqued my interest. My team members noticed the change, remarking on how my voice sounded brighter during meetings, an improvement from the low, somber tone I had once carried. It seemed my positive changes were contagious, lifting the spirits of my employees as well. Meanwhile, Wesley kept calling. I ignored him, but soon my foster mom started calling too. I could have easily blocked them. I had no attachment to the three of them, but I didn't cut ties completely, allowing myself a little payback. On days when I felt particularly down, I'd answer Wesley's calls, relishing his attempts to win me back. His overly flattering tone was almost entertaining. Mom was just as eager to appease me. Please, let the past be the past, she would say in a syrupy voice. I listened to their pleas only to reject them firmly in the end. Why would I willingly return to live with the three people I despised most in the world? Now, the tables had completely turned, and I found their reactions when I rebuffed them utterly amusing. I meticulously plotted my revenge, replaying every cruel moment they had inflicted upon me. Talking to Wesley revealed much. He and Hannah were buried in debt, largely due to Wesley's gambling addiction, which he had downplayed to Hannah, a truly deceitful act. He had succumbed to gambling during his college years, while Hannah, uninterested in such vices, was obsessed with shopping. According to Wesley, her wardrobe was so vast it could stock a boutique. She spent hours browsing online, buying anything that caught her fancy, regardless of their income. It was never sufficient, a truly pitiful situation. Yet, even in their financial ruin, they continued their extravagant lifestyle, leaving me utterly perplexed. From my mom, I learned more about Hannah. Despite sharing a home, she rarely lifted a finger to help with chores. She only washed her own clothes, leaving everything else to my mother. Cleaning, cooking, and tidying were chores she avoided unless explicitly instructed. Just picturing the tension in my parents' home was enough to sadden me. Meanwhile, the cafe was struggling, always operating at a loss. It usually takes a cafe 6 months to a year to establish itself. Yet the funds miraculously acquired from a bank loan vanished within 3 months. They should have set aside at least 6 months' worth of operating costs. With so few customers, the atmosphere at home grew increasingly strained. Mom mentioned that Wesley and Hannah's marriage was on the brink of collapse, but that was not my concern. Just support Wesley, then, I replied coldly before hanging up. Mom kept calling, begging me to come back. After all the insults, now they wanted to act as if nothing had happened. The audacity. Recently, Mom had been tugging at my heartstrings, lamenting that, in her 60s, she was in constant pain and struggling with daily chores. When I asked if she meant I should return to help with the housework, she outright denied it. For her, just having me, her close daughter, nearby was comforting enough. She claimed it sufficed if I were present and helped out occasionally. It was evident she was after my money, and I had no intention of believing her. What truly irked me was her invoking memories of Dad. Your father was kind. He must be pitying me now. Zoe, you're just like him, so kind. You wouldn't abandon your family. But bringing up Dad had the opposite effect. I remembered his suffering because of Mom, a failure running an unprofitable shop. How many times had I heard him labeled as such? Mom, who once derided me, now had no choice but to sing my praises. If Dad were watching, he would surely be laughing at her. If he felt pity, it would be for her shortcomings. I later told Wesley that Mom had been badmouthing Hannah extensively at my parents' home. A clash between Mom and Hannah ensued, with Mom now calling Hannah a moocher. Caught in the middle, Wesley seemed to be in a precarious position. 2 months later, Hannah's indiscretion surfaced. A man had approached her while she was alone at the cafe. With the business struggling and her relationship with her mother-in-law deteriorating, she succumbed to temptation during a moment of vulnerability. Naturally, Wesley was furious upon discovering this. In a rational world, they would have had a mature discussion about their future, but foolish Wesley chose revenge. He, too, had an affair. Both placed blame on each other, leading to a massive argument. The conflict escalated until a glass ornament thrown by Hannah struck Mom's foot, leaving her with a broken leg that would take months to heal, confining her to bed and preventing her from doing housework. Feeling a sense of guilt, Hannah began to take on household duties, but her lack of experience resulted in inevitable mistakes. While minor slip-ups should have been overlooked, Mom seized the opportunity to harass her, criticizing her efficiency and the overly salty meals. Frustrated and overwhelmed, Hannah contemplated giving up, her stress mounting. Anger towards Wesley for his infidelity and herself for injuring her mother-in-law consumed her. unable to discuss divorce due to her obligation to care for her injured mother-in-law. Hannah's mental state began to deteriorate. Wesley claimed she was now in a state of depression. Wesley faced severe repercussions for his vengeful affair. The partner of his fling harbored deep resentment, persistently bombarding his home and workplace with harassing calls. Ultimately, Wesley had no choice but to leave his job, unable to endure the relentless stress. The fallout from the affair plunged him deeper into debt, and with no steady job in sight, he resorted to part-time work, warehouse logistics, cleaning, moving, and delivery. He was trying his hand at anything feasible. Despite the exhaustion, he claimed it was preferable to being at home. The pain of facing Hannah and enduring Mom's piercing glares was unbearable. Working outside felt like a welcome escape. Once filled with the chaos of fights between couples and the tension of mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflicts, the house had transformed into an eerie silence. As no one was willing to speak, Mom avoided the sight of Wesley and Hannah altogether. Hannah steered clear of her mother-in-law, while Wesley felt increasingly awkward around both women. This uncomfortable dynamic defined their existence together. They cohabited in a state of mutual avoidance, creating an atmosphere that was nothing short of hellish, which I found deeply unsettling. During our phone conversations, Wesley shared these stories, ultimately asking me for money at the end of the call. Naturally, I refused. Lending them money would only foster their dependency, and I had no desire to be part of that. I understood that relationships built on financial support dissolve when the money disappears, so I was determined to sever those ties. Wesley mentioned he would call again, but I promptly blocked his number. I did the same with Mom's. I never saved Hannah's number, and since I don't answer calls from unknown or private numbers, I felt safe from further contact. Eventually, the three of them were unable to pay rent and dispersed. Mom relocated to a retirement home, and Wesley and Hannah divorced. Rumor had it that the building already had new tenants. While Wesley and Hannah's whereabouts remained a mystery, they were likely living modestly somewhere, gradually working to pay off their debts. As for me, I continued to relish my comfortable, solitary life. Work was going smoothly, and I enjoyed a good rapport with my colleagues. Everything felt perfect, though perhaps a new chapter was on the horizon. A coworker introduced me to a man, and I agreed to go on a date with him. He's a young entrepreneur, and there's something captivating about the way his eyes light up when he talks about work, a truly charming individual. Until now, I had focused solely on my career, steering clear of dating. It seemed my single life was nearing its end. My name is Mia, and I'm 34 years old. 3 years ago, I married Matthew after dating for 2 years. Lately, though, we've struggled to conceive, and over the past 6 months, I've felt a growing distance between us. Matthew is busy running his company and is on track to become the next president. He often attends company events, which means late nights filled with drinking and socializing. I've convinced myself that once we have a child, things will change, so I've overlooked some of his behavior and continued to support him. His parents, especially my father-in-law Kevin, are very kind and treat me like their own daughter. One evening, while preparing dinner, I received a text from Matthew. I've got a drinking party tonight, so I won't need dinner. Not sure what time I'll be back. It was a familiar, disappointing message. Again? You did the same yesterday. Are you sure everything is okay? I reminded him that he'd come home late the night before after drinking with colleagues. Are you being sarcastic? Stop that. I'm not just a carefree housewife, Mia. I'm not being sarcastic. I'm just worried. And yes, I'm a housewife, but it's not like I'm lounging around doing nothing. So what? You're busy then? It's not like you can be busy when we don't have kids. There you go again, blaming me for our childlessness. Our conversations always end up like this. Matthew looked at me with frustration. It's the truth, isn't it? We've been married for 3 years, and it's strange we don't have kids yet. The test showed no issues. It must just be about timing. But your drinking parties have increased, and we hardly spend time together. Can't we make an effort to connect? I gathered my courage to suggest we prioritize our time together for our future. It's true we see less of each other, but I'm busy with work because I'm on track to be president. You understand that, right? Yes, I understand, but when our lives pass like ships in the night, it makes me anxious. I see. I'll try to come home earlier, but tonight, I won't be back until late. With that, he left for his drinking party. When he finally came home just before dawn, he promised to make time for us, but I couldn't shake my anxiety about whether he meant it. One day, we received an invitation to dinner at Matthew's family home. Though he seemed hesitant, we decided to go together. While I helped his mother, Emily, prepare the meal in the kitchen, I overheard Kevin and Matthew talking in the living room. You've been busy lately, but you are coming home, right? What did Mia say? Mia? I haven't heard from her. Why? Is there something you want to talk about? Nothing, Matthew replied, sounding uneasy. Why the sudden concern? Are you worried I'm not coming home? No, I do come home. I've just had a lot of drinking parties recently, so sometimes I get back late. I thought you might have heard something from Mia. Don't start that. All I hear from Mia is that you're working hard. Matthew seemed flustered, realizing he had slipped up. I've told you to take care of Mia. You need to come home right after work. I doubt there are that many drinking parties at the company. Are there? You know I dislike unnecessary drinking. Matthew appeared troubled and glanced my way, and I quickly turned my head, trying to avoid his gaze. Kevin doesn't like unnecessary drinking parties. He comes home right after work, Emily chimed in. I recalled Matthew mentioning that their company's drinking parties were fewer compared to others when we first started dating. I'm responsible for a very important client, he explained. You may be the president, but you don't know everything, right? Kevin replied, nodding. This client really enjoys drinking parties. I'm attending for the company's sake. Matthew glanced at me again, and I barely avoided his eyes. Well, work is work. There may be unavoidable parties, but if you don't cherish Mia, you'll end up unhappy. Think about that, Kevin advised. Yes, I understand, Matthew responded, though his tone was reluctant. Perhaps Kevin's words struck a chord because Matthew started coming home earlier more often. We began to have dinner together and enjoy more quality time as a couple. Just like before, I was grateful to Kevin for his intervention. Then one morning, I suddenly felt unwell and decided to visit the hospital. They suggested I take a pregnancy test, and to my astonishment, I found out I was pregnant. I was overjoyed. I immediately called Matthew to share the news. What's up? I'm busy at work. Sorry for the sudden call, but I wanted to tell you something as soon as possible. What is it? I was so filled with excitement that I could barely contain myself. I wanted to tell you in person, but I couldn't wait until tonight. We're going to be parents. What do you mean? I'm pregnant. I felt unwell this morning, went to the hospital, and they confirmed it. I'm really pregnant. I blurted it all out in one breath, but there was silence on the other end of the line. Matthew? I'm here. That's great news, but I'm really busy right now. Let's talk more tonight. I have to go. Sorry for interrupting you when you're busy. I just wanted you to know as soon as possible. Yeah, we'll discuss it tonight. After hanging up, a wave of anxiety washed over me. He didn't even say congratulations. Matthew wanted a child too, didn't he? A sense of unease settled in, but I couldn't help my excitement about our long-awaited baby. I was filled with joy and eagerly anticipated Matthew's return to talk about our future together. But when Matthew finally came home, it was late and he was clearly drunk. I'm home. What, you've been drinking? So what if I have? He shot back, irritation etched on his face. It's not just about the drinking. I've been waiting all day to talk about the baby and our future. Oh, that? Aren't you happy? Of course, I'm happy. This is our long-awaited pregnancy. Then you should have come home early to hear what I had to say. You show up drunk like this. I felt a surge of frustration. I wanted him to be excited too, to share in our joy. His attitude made me feel completely deflated. What? I came home early, didn't I? I could have stayed out all night, but I thought about you and decided to come back. Stayed out all night? Why would today be an overnight stay? If you really thought about me, you wouldn't have gone drinking in the first place. Do you want a divorce then? I froze, shocked by his sudden mention of divorce. We'd argued before, but we had never discussed separation. Divorce? That's not something you bring up when we've just found out we're having a child. True, Mia, but let's be honest, you can't divorce me, can you? Your parents have a small business barely enough for them. My dad's company is much bigger, you know that. Why are you bringing up my dad's company? Because if we divorce, you'll have nowhere to go. Your dad's company isn't thriving, and it could be in trouble soon, right? That's not true. I've heard dad's company is doing well, and why do you keep insisting that's the issue? It's not. Doing well, that company? I felt my anger rising at his dismissive words. Mia, you need to understand that if you divorce me, you'd be in a tough spot, do you get that? So whether I drink or come home late, you can't complain, and don't expect me to take on childcare responsibilities. I'm busy with work. I'm going to be the next president, remember? You need to handle everything. Matthew snapped back, frustration clear in his voice. I rushed to the bathroom, tears of frustration streaming down my face. Why did he have to belittle my dad's company so much? Why couldn't he just say, congratulations? Didn't he want a child, too? Raising a child together was my deepest desire. I hated the thought of worrying my parents, especially my dad, who always fretted about me visiting home alone. Since we got married, Matthew had never once accompanied me to my parents' house, always citing work as the excuse. I convinced myself that once the baby arrived, he would step up and embrace his role as a father. We tried to forget the night he came home drunk and moved on. But soon it became clear that Matthew was slipping back into his old habits. His late nights were becoming more frequent, and it felt as though we had reverted to the time before the pregnancy. I had hoped to cherish our moments together before the baby's arrival, but instead, we were back to barely communicating, and he kept coming home late. One day, Kevin invited us to go shopping. When I announced my pregnancy, my in-laws were overjoyed and kept asking about my health. "Mia, how are you feeling?" Kevin greeted me as soon as I arrived. "Thank you, the baby and I are doing well." "Great to hear. We thought it would be nice to shop for baby items today. Don't worry about carrying everything. Matthew and I will help," he said with a warm smile. Matthew, as usual, seemed reluctant. He had gone drinking the night before and returned home at dawn, but he couldn't refuse his dad's invitation. Shopping with the baby in mind was enjoyable, and before I knew it, our cart was overflowing with items. Kevin initially offered to pay, but since he had already purchased the larger items, we insisted on covering this trip ourselves. I pushed the cart to the register. "How much would you like to pay?" the cashier asked. "Just put it on my card, please," I replied, but then an unexpected sound rang out. "I'm sorry, but this card isn't going through." Panic surged through me as I called Matthew over. "I don't understand, my card isn't working, could you use yours for now?" Without saying a word, Matthew took out his card and paid. Afterward, I asked, "What's wrong with my card? Your card worked just fine a moment ago." His reply was shocking. "It's been cancelled because we're divorced." Time seemed to freeze. I was speechless. After a moment, I managed to stammer, "Excuse me, you're joking, right?" "It's no joke, we're divorced. The papers have already been filed." "Wait, I don't remember signing any divorce papers." "Don't you recall that big fight we had? You signed the divorce papers I brought." Suddenly, Matthew's words triggered a memory of a heated argument early in our marriage when I had signed something in a fit of anger. We had made up the next day, laughing it off as a moment of madness. Kevin and Emily stared at us, wide-eyed and shocked. "Do you remember now?" Matthew pressed. "I can't believe you kept it all this time." My anger was boiling over. Just then, Kevin, who had been rendered speechless, finally spoke up. "We're done." I noticed Kevin was shaking. "Dad, are you okay? What do you mean, we're done? You really filed those divorce papers?" Kevin's expression was one of rage. "I did, they've been processed. Things haven't been good between us for a while. Mia got pregnant during that time, but I just can't do this. Once love is gone, it doesn't return." "You're trying to act tough, our baby is about to be born." "That's true, but it can't be helped, can it? I don't feel love for you anymore." "I'm sorry to both of you, Mom and Dad, but please understand my selfishness," Matthew added, leaving them speechless and appalled. My heart felt like it might burst from the shock. I worried about the stress this could put on my pregnancy. I asked Kevin to call me a taxi and decided to go home. Kevin's face was pale as Matthew silently watched me leave. Once home, I couldn't stop crying, unsure of what to do. Hours passed, and I remained in a daze. Suddenly, my dad called. "Mia, are you okay? Where are you?" He sounded panicked. It seemed Kevin had reached out to him. "I'm coming to pick you up now, stay put." "It's okay, just leave him to me." For a moment, I wasn't sure who he meant by him, but I assumed it was Matthew. Dad arrived quickly to pick me up, and I returned to my parents' house. As I spent time with Dad and Mom, I gradually regained my strength. I realized that being with someone as toxic as Matthew would only lead to unhappiness, for both me and my child. I was furious about the divorce papers being filed without my consent, but if the divorce was already finalized, then so be it. My feelings for Matthew had diminished to that extent. I didn't want to check for messages from Matthew, so I kept my distance from my phone. Knowing this, Dad seemed to be in communication with Matthew's father. Through their exchanges, I learned about the truths Matthew had been concealing. When Dad confronted me with the facts, any lingering affection I had for Matthew vanished completely. About half a month after returning home, I finally braved a glance at my phone. It was flooded with messages and missed calls from Matthew. As soon as he noticed that I had seen his texts, he called me immediately. I steeled myself and answered. "Hello? Is this Mia?" "Finally got through. What do you want?" he asked, his tone a mix of relief and urgency. "I don't want to talk to you." "Don't say that. I was really wrong that time. I was shocked and anxious when I suddenly heard you were pregnant. That's why I did what I did. I regret it now." Matthew launched into a string of excuses. Hearing him express regret was surprising, but I had no intention of starting over. "Let's start fresh. Let's submit a marriage certificate again. We can raise the child together," he pleaded. "Did you break up with your affair partner?" My voice was colder than I intended. "Did Dad tell you?" "I really am sorry. I regret it now. I've ended things with her." Matthew had been cheating on me even before I got pregnant. It started around the time I sensed our paths were diverging 6 months ago. His late nights were all lies, disguising his meetings with her, a junior at his company. My dad had discreetly hired a detective, worried about me, to confirm my suspicions. Later, I learned, if we get married again. What about your job? You know about that too? I think I can return to work if I can start over with you. Mia, please help me. It turned out that Matthew's dad's company was in financial trouble, struggling with debts. He had turned to my dad for help. Dad's company isn't large, but he's consistently done reliable work over the years, ensuring steady business and financial reserves, Dad explained. As a condition for lending the money, my dad had made Matthew's dad sign a contract stating that if Matthew ever betrayed me, all rights to his company would transfer to my dad. At the time, they had no reason to believe Matthew would betray me, but everything was documented. Now it made sense why Matthew's dad had been so affectionate toward me. He never thought his son would actually betray me. Furious with Matthew for divorcing me without consulting anyone, he had fired him from the company and told him to leave the house. Matthew was trying to reconcile with me to avoid the fallout. I have no intention of marrying you again. I will never forgive what you did, cheating and hiding it, abandoning me when I got pregnant, and filing for a divorce on your own. But I'm truly sorry. It's unfair for our child to grow up without a father. I'll make sure to pay child support and alimony. I have nowhere to go, no job. What am I supposed to do now? That's not my problem. Reflect on your foolishness. I finally realized how important you are to me. Please don't abandon me. In frustration, I immediately blocked Matthew's number. His father had promised to ensure alimony and child support would be paid, but that didn't concern me anymore. Since then, I've been living with my parents. I started working as an office clerk at my dad's company. My belly is growing, and I'm due next month. My parents and colleagues are warm and supportive, and I'm grateful to be back in a nurturing environment. Acknowledging his son's betrayal in the contract with my dad, Matthew's father began preparations to transfer the company. However, my dad had no intention of taking over. The money has been repaid, and I can't manage 2 companies, he said with a chuckle. Meanwhile, Matthew, cut off by his family and fired from his job, struggled to make ends meet with part-time work. As for me, I'm focusing on enjoying my job and life with my child, hopeful that this happiness will continue. You can't just throw money at your hair, it's a waste. My mother-in-law, Scarlett, held me down, her grip unyielding, as she ruthlessly hacked away at my hair. This wasn't the first time she'd bullied me, but this act felt utterly unforgivable. I had cherished my hair deeply, and having it taken from me like this made me realize I couldn't stay with her any longer. I would return to my parents' house for good. 3 days after moving back, I received a call from my husband. His voice was laced with fury. How long do you plan on staying at your parents' house? It's your fault mom got hit by a car. I couldn't understand how my being at my parents' house had anything to do with that, but I reluctantly made my way to the hospital where Scarlett had been taken. As he explained, you left without doing anything at home. Because of that, mom had to go shopping, and on her way, she got hit by a car. Now she's paralyzed from the waist down. And what does that have to do with me? It does. You should take care of her. Absolutely not. There's no way I'm doing that. Then it's divorce. Those words had been hanging in the air, and I had been bracing myself for them. After what Scarlett had done to me, cutting off my beloved hair, there was no way I would simply agree to care for her with a casual, "Okay, I understand. Fine, let's get divorced then." My husband's surprise was evident. He hadn't expected me to agree so easily. After everything they put me through, they could have their happy life together without me. 2 years ago, I had married Anthony, a colleague from a major automobile manufacturer. After the wedding, I left my job to work part-time at a nearby drugstore. We had dreams of having children one day, but infertility had stood in our way. "Amelia, don't rush, it will happen in time," he would say whenever I felt low about our situation. Though he worked long hours and came home late, his comforting words always lifted my spirits. I managed the household chores while juggling my part-time job, which was no small feat, but I was genuinely happy to be married to such a kind man. Half a year into our marriage, we both had a rare day off. Just as we were getting ready to go shopping, his phone rang. "What, Dad?" His face went pale as he answered. "What happened, Dad?" "He's dead." I couldn't believe it. His always energetic father had passed away suddenly. We rushed to the hospital, where the atmosphere was heavy with grief. Why did this happen? In the hospital room, Scarlett clung to her husband, tears streaming down her face. The news of his sudden heart attack hit hard. She had found him lifeless at home. Since that day, Scarlett seemed lost, barely responding to my husband's calls. "You know, leaving mom alone like this isn't safe," he remarked one day. Yeah, she seems really shaken. If you're okay with it, Amelia, could you stay with her at your parents' house? Maybe if we all lived together, it might help her feel better. I agreed, thinking it might bring some solace to Scarlett. Thankfully, we hadn't bought a house yet, so moving was simple. As his son's wife, I wanted to do something to support her. Little did I know, this decision would lead to unforeseen consequences. The day after moving in, I was jolted awake by Scarlett's voice. Wake up, are you still sleeping? Get up and make breakfast. What time is it? I mumbled, still groggy. The clock showed 6 a.m. Scarlett, it's only 6 a.m., what are you talking about? Is that so? A wife should be up before 5 a.m., cleaning and preparing breakfast. I felt the pressure of her expectations bearing down on me. Reluctantly, I got out of bed and started making breakfast. Even in the kitchen, Scarlett's nagging continued. Don't be lazy, it must be nice not having kids to take care of. Her constant reminders about not having children were wearing me down. She had frequently expressed her desire to see grandchildren, and now it seemed her disappointment about my infertility was spilling over into her remarks. Well, that's a blessing that isn't easy to come by. Your infertility isn't your fault. Scarlett's voice dripped with condescension. If you think I'm slacking, then maybe you should hurry up and get fertility treatment. Being unable to have a child makes you a failure. I couldn't hold back my anger any longer. This was the turning point, marking the beginning of Scarlett's relentless bullying. Can't you even manage something so simple? You call this clean? Look at the laundry piling up. Why don't you do it more often? Scarlett criticized everything I did. Balancing my part-time job and household chores wasn't easy. I may not have been perfect, but I certainly wasn't free enough to do everything flawlessly. A week later, utterly drained from her constant torment, I decided to talk to my husband about Scarlett when he returned from a company drinking party. Hey, Scarlett's been complaining about everything I do. What are the household chores supposed to be, if not the wife's responsibility? Mom did it all without a word of complaint. That may be true, he replied, but perfection isn't possible. I work part-time too. Stop making excuses. Is that really all you want to talk about? I'm going to bed. His dismissive attitude stung. I had thought he would be my ally, but without his support, I was left to endure Scarlett's bullying alone. Taking my silence for weakness, her harassment intensified. One day, after cleaning up breakfast and retreating to my room, I discovered Scarlett rummaging through my closet. Scarlett, what are you doing? My underwear is just plain. She held my underwear up, as if judging me. Don't go through my things without permission, and dressing so unattractively? No wonder Anthony doesn't pay attention to you. Why not wear something that catches his eye? When will I get to see my grandchild? She sneered. The question hung in the air like a heavy weight. She didn't need to say it. Every conversation eventually circled back to her desire for grandchildren. I wanted children too. I was undergoing fertility treatments, longing for a baby without anyone understanding the pain I felt. Scarlett's harsh words pierced through me, leaving me speechless. A week later, while my husband was out for a business golf outing, it was just Scarlett and me in the in-laws' house. I woke up early as usual, made breakfast, tidied up, and began my household chores, but Scarlett seemed to be in a foul mood. As I cleaned the living room, she sat on the sofa, fidgeting restlessly. Why are you fidgeting like that? I asked. Your shampoo seems awfully expensive. Oh, well, I've always taken good care of my hair. Since childhood, I've received many compliments on my long, straight hair, and I put a lot of effort into maintaining it. Why spend money on your hair? Shouldn't you invest that in fertility treatments instead? The treatments and shampoo come from my part-time earnings, I replied defensively. Scarlett let out a chilling laugh. She stood up, moved closer, and suddenly grabbed my hair with a fierce grip. It hurts. Please stop, I pleaded, but she didn't listen. With a pair of scissors in her hands, she began cutting my hair. It's your fault for having such long hair. As she continued snipping away, I realized my once proud locks were reduced to the length of a man's. Tears streamed down my face as I stood there in shock, watching Scarlett return to her room with a malicious smile. In an instant, my pride and beautiful hair were gone, everything I had worked so hard to maintain, wasted. I couldn't bear it any longer. I packed my things and sent a message to my husband. I'm going back to my parents' house for a while. With that, I rushed out of the in-laws' house. I would never forgive Scarlett. As I made my way back to my parents' house, I was consumed by a burning hatred for her. 3 days later, in the middle of a weekday, my husband called. Hey, how long are you going to stay at your parents'? You need to come back soon. He hadn't reached out since I left, and now he was demanding my return. I'm not coming back. Scarlett cut my cherished hair. I don't want to see her face again, and I plan to stay away for a while. When I firmly told my husband that I didn't want to return, He exploded with rage. Your hair doesn't matter. His sudden, loud voice made me pull the phone away from my ear. What's wrong with you? Mom had an accident. Come back quickly. Even though the thought of facing Scarlett filled me with dread, I felt compelled to go to the hospital upon hearing about her accident. After about an hour, I arrived at the hospital and entered the room to find Scarlett lying in a bed, connected to a breathing machine. What have you been doing all this time? My husband noticed my arrival and immediately began to berate me. It's your fault. Mom had to go shopping and got hit by a car. If you hadn't gone back to your parents' house, this wouldn't have happened. How unreasonable. What did Scarlett getting hit by a car have to do with me? I wanted to retort, but the sight of her terrible condition rendered me speechless. It looked like she had undergone major surgery. Her body was wrapped in gauze, and there were abrasions everywhere. Excuse me, are you family? A doctor entered the room, presumably to explain Scarlett's condition. Yes, my husband replied, his voice shaky. Scarlett has sustained severe injuries to her lower body. There's a possibility of paralysis if the nerves are damaged. Unfortunately, complete recovery is unlikely. Is there nothing that can be done? I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. Unfortunately, there is nothing more we can do. Hearing this, my husband collapsed to the ground, burying his face in his hands. About 30 minutes later, Scarlett woke up. Why am I in the hospital? Mom, thank goodness you're awake. You were hit by a car and brought here. More importantly, can you move your legs? Can you? I can't move them. Why? It seemed that, as the doctor had warned, Scarlett had lost sensation in her lower body. Seeing her condition, my husband turned his fury on me again. It's all your fault. You have to take care of Mom now. Wait a minute. Why should I be the one to take care of her? Yes, it's tragic that she had a terrible accident and is now paralyzed, but I've suffered so much at Scarlett's hands. Divorce? Absolutely not. How heartless can you be? Scarlett is in such a terrible state, and you won't even care for her. If you won't, then let's get a divorce. He thought that by throwing around the word divorce, I'd simply comply, but to me, it was a welcome suggestion. I had been waiting for it. Sure, I have no problem with getting divorced. What? My husband looked shocked. He probably never expected I would actually follow through. But you only work part-time, right? You don't earn much. Can you survive? It was true. My part-time job didn't pay much, and my lifestyle would take a hit, but I had savings and could manage for a while. I stood firm against my husband. Even if life became a bit tougher, it was better than living with him and Scarlett. Really? Don't come back regretting it. Regret? No way. It's better to live alone than with a husband who never listens and a mother-in-law who abuses me. As I said this, I pulled the divorce papers from my bag. I had taken them with me when I left the in-laws' house. Sign quickly before you change your mind. Prompted by my insistence, my husband signed the divorce papers. He threw the completed documents at me and spat. Here, suffer through a hard life. You two live well together. As I turned to leave the hospital room, I remembered something I needed to say to Scarlett. Oh, right, Scarlett, you cut my hair without my permission. I'll never forgive you for that. With those parting words, I submitted the divorce papers. On my way to the in-laws' house to collect my things, memories of my life with my husband flooded back, but ultimately, I realized he had only ever cared about himself. To him, I had been nothing more than a convenient housekeeper. When I called my parents to inform them of the divorce, they warmly invited me to come home. They promised to support me financially until I found a job. A month later, back at my parents' house, I continued my part-time job while searching for something more stable. Fortunately, with my bookkeeping qualifications, I landed a position at a small construction company nearby. The pay wasn't much, but it was enough to get by, and I was determined to make it work. As I began to enjoy my newfound independence, one day, my ex-husband suddenly showed up at my parents' house. Amelia, please open up. I jumped at his loud voice ringing through the doorbell. My parents were out that day, and I was home alone since I had the day off. Of course, he had no idea I was free. Frightened by his sudden visit, I decided to confront him. What do you want now? Go back. Please come back home. What? No way. We're divorced. Why should I come back? Don't say that. Taking care of Mom is easier than working part-time. How selfish could he be? He thought caring for Scarlett was easier than my job? No way. Working part-time was infinitely better. Who in their right mind would want to take care of Scarlett? Is that all? Just go back. I tried to send him away quickly, but my ex-husband wouldn't leave. Instead, he kept shouting at the entrance, becoming a nuisance to the neighbors. Reluctantly, I opened the door and let him in. Please, just this once, if we don't remarry, can you at least visit Mom? His persistence wore me down, and I reluctantly agreed to visit the former in-laws' house. As soon as I entered, Scarlett's angry voice cut through the air. Where have you been? Her grating voice made me feel miserable. I thought I would never set foot in this house again. Stepping into the living room, I was shocked by the sight before me. What is this situation? Sandwich containers were strewn across the table and floor, and half-empty bottles rolled carelessly around. Scarlett's care must be a challenge. It's impossible to manage while working. What are you dawdling for? I need to go to the bathroom. Help me now, she demanded. Mom, what about the helper? Didn't we arrange for one today? I don't need those useless people. They can't do their jobs properly. Now wheelchair-bound, Scarlett had become even more difficult, lashing out at her helpers. It was no wonder she had been refused by facilities. As my ex-husband had mentioned, I understood why. Hey, you'll do. Take me to the bathroom now, Scarlett shouted when she noticed me. I felt a mix of anger and pity. Why should I help? Are you talking to me? I have nothing to do with you anymore. Ask your son. Such an insolent girl. Scarlett, infuriated by my words, threw a nearby bottle at me. In her fury, she lost her balance and fell from her wheelchair. And it's your fault I ended up like this. Take responsibility. Scarlett glared at me from the floor, but I was no longer afraid. Responsibility? Why should I? I'm no longer your daughter-in-law. I haven't forgiven you for what you did. Don't say that. I know it's shameful, but I can manage daily life in this state. Please, let's start over. Start over? Don't say that so lightly. I can't listen to you now. I managed housework while working part-time, so you can do it too. I regret not helping with the housework and always siding with Mom. Please give me another chance. My ex-husband begged and apologized deeply, but his pleas fell on deaf ears. He knelt there, while Scarlett remained on the floor, glaring at me with contempt. No matter how much you apologize, I won't return to this house. Take care of Scarlett, or reconsider things with Anthony. Really? Such a heartless wife. Don't you feel sorry for me? Scarlett spat back, still unable to grasp her situation. Yeah, I don't feel sorry for you. This is your responsibility now. I'm leaving. Wait, my ex-husband desperately tried to stop me, but I was fed up. I turned to him. If you keep following me, I'll call the police for stalking, and if you come to my parents' house again, I won't hesitate to report you. With that, my ex-husband fell silent. I hoped this would deter him from bothering me again. They were reaping what they had sown. After treating me poorly, they should be forced to live with the consequences of their actions. Since then, my ex-husband hadn't unexpectedly visited my parents' house, and I was finally living peacefully. I grew accustomed to my job and even found a new boyfriend. My personal life was flourishing. One day, I received a message from my ex-husband. It's been a while. I lost my job after that. I'm exhausted from taking care of Mom. I'm job hunting, but it's tough to find work, so I'm barely getting by with part-time gigs. Mom had to be hospitalized again, but she might be discharged due to bad reviews from the nurses. Sorry for the sudden message. I really regret the trouble I caused you. After reading the message, I deleted it. He probably thought appealing to my emotions would bring me back to him. Their situation felt almost refreshing. I had started a new life and wanted no more involvement with them. I had spent too much time focused on them, neglecting myself. Now, I was determined to prioritize my own happiness. If I ever married my current boyfriend, I would never live in the in-laws' house again. I didn't want to go through that nightmare a second time.